Today we'll be talking about Yakuza 3, Okinawa, conspiracies, and Kiryu's toughest fight yet. We're breaking down the box art, the writer's change, and the wild story, Yakuza, CIA, and an orphanage under attack. Combat's revamped, mini-games galore, and we're tackling the controversial cuts. Was Yakuza 3 a hit or a miss? All this and more on SEGA Talk.
SEGA Bits presents SEGA Talk, a podcast talking all things SEGA with your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to SEGA Talk. I'm your host, George, and like always, with me is the wonderful Barry.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 160.
Oh, yeah.
We did it. SEGA 60. SEGA Bits 160.
Was that like a goal, a milestone? 160? Not 150, 160.
Not really. No. SEGA's 65 now, so.
They are retired.
I gotta bring this up before we get into our main event. Ever since we talked about Game Gear accessories on the last episode, I hit eBay, and this arrived. I ordered it on a Tuesday morning, and it arrived Thursday afternoon from Japan. That's how fast it came. That's insane. But I got Sonic Drift on the Game Gear.
Nice.
And this is a Japanese exclusive. It's one of the few Game Gear. But I got it for $20. But look, I've never seen a Game Gear case before. And look, it's like a little plastic tray. And they have a beautiful like color insert and a color booklet. And every game comes in the plastic case. I don't know if the US ever did that. I don't think they did. But like the plastic case that you know, and this thing's like mint. I've never seen a Game Gear plastic case that's so shiny. It's very nice. But yeah, and then I also ordered one of those like batteries that attach to the back of the Game Gear.
So talking about the Game Gear got you to buy more Game Gear stuff. And I have to say the market for the Game Gear is actually really cheap, in my opinion.
It is. That's why. Yeah. I got, like I said, this was $20 complete in box, and the battery pack was $10, and it's coming from Canada, and I got it right before the
tariffs.
The tariffs. I don't think that affects it, but still, that would be funny if they're like, "Oh, you got the Game Gear battery tariff." Anyway, that's all I have.
You want to do the beautiful Patreon plug?
Yeah. So if you support us at patreon.com/SegaBits, it not only keeps this show going, it brightens our mood, brightens our spirits, and just makes us, I guess, happier. That's what that is. But you can support us at any tier, and yes, there's even a free tier. Now, you don't get anything, but it does put us on your radar. You might start seeing like the posts we're doing, and you might go, you know what? They do post enough for me to like consider getting this. And the great thing is if you support us at $1, you get the audio version of this like 2 weeks in advance, which is a really long stretch of time. And for me, I'm itching to post these episodes to the public, but I know those beautiful Patreon backers, they get it 2 weeks in advance. And come on, 2 weeks? That's insane. So yeah, and this one's a pick. So if you support us at a higher tier, you get to pick and tell us what we cover. George, do you want to tell us who the picker was for this one?
Daniel Andres picked this episode, and he gave us a voicemail for this one. It was 5 minutes long, so we're going to play a minute of it right now, and the rest of it will be in the end of the podcast.
So, Yakuza 3. I actually have a lot to say about this one. More or less. I don't know. It's just, man, my feelings towards this game are very mixed. At the time when I requested this episode, I wasn't done with the game yet, I believe. I think I was still working through it, but I was really enjoying it at the time. I love the story for one. It took me a long time to kind of like come to terms with it, but I like it, and there's some spoilers about it that I'm sure you guys will get into later on in the episode that I was kind of like, what about? Like, one of it has to do with Kiryu's foster father. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But that turned out to be, I'm like, oh, I'm okay with that, and I don't remember if that character survived or not in the game. I think he did, but he just kind of like fucks off in the series, which is like, what? That was interesting. Keep him around. I actually liked him, and I really liked Kiryu's outcome in this game. What I mean by that is that what he gets the family that he deserves. He gets the orphanage and the kids and everything, him living on the beach. That stuff I don't mind. I know some fans hated that for the story, but not me. No, sir. No, I couldn't be happier for him. And with him and Haruka having a peaceful life, all that stuff is very deserving. Yes, I'm accepting of that in the game. I actually love the tender moments in this game. I think they're written incredibly well. I know this is like filler Yakuza kind of in a way. Like, this game is like all filler. Like, I know people say to skip it. People say it doesn't really matter. I don't fully agree with those points of views. If you're playing these games for the first time in story order, you shouldn't skip anything. Not even this game, no. But if you're having a tough time playing it, I highly recommend playing this game on easy.
So, Daniel Andres obviously had mixed feelings, and I think a lot of people do, but there's a lot of this game to like. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Sonic Front, or maybe more like Sonic 06, but that actually worked. Like, they actually did a good job where they had to revamp a series on a new console that they didn't know how to do with only a little bit of time, and I think they did a decent enough job. And I think this one's prime for a Kiwami remake, but some people online say no, but I think it needs it a little for just the quality, because kids coming in from the new games do not understand some of the jank from this era. So, but
yeah,
Yakuza 3 is a 2009 action adventure game developed by SEGA CS R&D, or CS1 R&D. That was the name of the Yakuza studio, on the PlayStation 3. The third main entry in the Like a Dragon series. It was released in Japan and Southeast Asia on February 2009, and in North America and Europe on March 2010. It was later ported to the PS4 in 2018 and 2019, and it's kind of been on PC and other consoles. I don't think, did they do a Switch version yet, or no? Right, just Kiwami so far.
Yeah, just Kiwami.
But yeah, I definitely think everyone should not get the PS3 version and go straight to the PS4, because it's 1080p, 60 frames per second. It added more all the cut content that we'll talk about later. And so, yeah. So what's your history with Yakuza 3? What do you think about the game when Sega announced it, and how do you remember it now?
Well, this game, this is kind of a trend with our episodes so far, where we're covering stuff that we covered when the site first started, SegaBits. So this was a March 2010 release, meaning it was the first Yakuza game that we covered as a site. And it was also, the series made its jump to PS3. So it was really exciting at the time. I obviously watched from the sidelines. I didn't have a PS3. But I enjoyed the coverage, and I was like, wow, this series made it to 3 games, and that's very rare for Sega.
At this period, for sure.
Yeah. And so I did eventually buy it used for, it must have been like $20 or something. Not much, but I just wanted to have it. And same with Yakuza 4. I have that as well, even though I can't play it. But then you mentioned the remaster collection. I did pick that up, and I dig it. I really love. I think this is like, they would never do this now.
Oh,
but the inclusion of the Yakuza 5 case,
right?
Which is just like, because Yakuza 5 was the only PS3 game in the series to get a digital only I guess all I'd say is that I kind of wish I had like 3 and 4 on their own standalone discs, but it's nice to have this remastered collection. It's still available,
Right.
and it's still affordable. So like, pick this up. It's a no-brainer.
My history, obviously, I covered it on. I was doing the site during this era, and I definitely remember being very, very, very excited for the fact that it's finally going 3D. I think one of the black marks on Yakuza 1 and 2 was that it was like an isometric view of the graphics. And a lot of people were like, but Shimyu has a full 3D and it looked so much better. And it's true. It had the engine in Shimyu was a very impressive engine, especially for its time. So it shows you how impressive it was that like even PS2 games didn't really match it. Not all of them in quality of its engine. But so it finally got there, and I remember people still being disappointed with some of the how blurry some of the graphics looked. And when we go into the development, we'll start seeing the fact that the game even ran and was a complete 12-hour game. I mean, 12-chapter game with a ton of new mini games that are basically staples for the franchise. It says a lot. It's like Frontiers in a way where it does so much good, but it's doing so much new that you have to have more games built on top of it to get the full, I guess the full fruits of the labor, because that's kind of like what Yakuza 4 and 5 are really.
Right. And it's worth pointing out too, you mentioned the Kiwami remakes for 1 and 2, the Yakuza 0. If you're playing this game sequentially on the PS4 or PS5, this is the oldest game out of everything, because like, you know, it's a remaster of PS3 game. Obviously, you know, you can play 0, 1, and 2. And so in that sense, like, do you think this game gets maybe not so much love because nowadays you play 0, 1, and 2 and that just feels like such a step back?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people play it the way I played it when I first played this game, and I was a little disappointed where like when you play a Yakuza game, the first literal thing you want to do is just punch the opponent as much as possible and beat them. And obviously that's a good strategy usually, especially in Yakuza 1 and 2, but this one tried to change it up, and I guess I'll get into it more when we talk about gameplay, but they try to basically have the user actually like use weapons that have been introduced in this game and try different strategies like dodging and getting grabs from the back, I think, and punches from the back instead of trying to break their block. So a lot of people say this game is slow because of the blocking, but I guess it depends on how you play it. But yes, this game is very it's not the best one. And I think we'll talk about more about the story, but they changed writers, and it also became the part where a lot of the cheesy soap opera events started happening, and you'll start seeing it when we talk about characters. So let's talk about development. This game only had a 8-month development cycle. The entire game was built from scratch. No assets were reused from the previous PS3 game Kenzan, which, knowing this studio, it's very surprising that they don't use assets. They created 360 characters, 110 of them being high polygon models and 250 being minor polygon models within the time frame. The fact that Kenzan was actually supposed to be it had a higher budget and really high expectations when it came out. Sega really had high expectations for the Samurai one, and it didn't do it. So the performance actually impacted the development of Yakuza 3. And are you surprised that Sega wanted a side game to like high expectations for performance for a side game, especially a Samurai one?
Yeah, so remind me, so Kenzan, the Samurai spinoff, that came out before this.
Yes.
And was the first PS3 release for Yakuza.
Yes.
And was Kazuma's debut in his current design, right?
Yes. In a way, but
that's so strange.
But they redid his whole model for this game too, because they used new tech in this game. So yes, the model was 3D, but this is the real you Kazuma? I don't know. It's weird, and if you look at him in Kinzen, I think he looks the same when I first last saw him. But
yeah, I'm looking at him now.
Yeah, I always thought he looked the same, like angry. But yeah, Kenzen's also the only game we haven't got here yet. I think it's the only game we haven't got here yet. I'm trying to think. Oh, the PSP games either, but those aren't real Yakuza games because none of the main cast here are in those games. So so like everyone else, the PS3 hardware was hard to develop for. I don't think there's any Sega studio that didn't have trouble developing on the PS3. I think every studio hated the PS3 to make games for. This led with them struggling with stiff animations and combat mechanics being more limited because they had to try to figure out how to get the game to run. The game also suffered obviously because of annual releases, but this game's slogan by the CS1 team was not reality, but real. And this was to describe the graphical approach. What do you think about that slogan? I know that studios have slogans all the time, but not reality, but real. No rating on the marketing scale for this one?
Not reality. It sounds like messed up. It doesn't make any sense. Not reality, but real. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's not reality, but it's
real.
Made to look real.
Right.
Okay.
And one of the features in this game that this game is actually the first game to use a thing called wrinkle shader tech for facial animations, and this was part of not reality but real mindset, and it was part of the Magical V engine technology that this has been used in all the PS3 games after this.
I have a wrinkle shader.
I know, me too. Just So this game was also new because of the Okinawa setting that was actually modeled after Tokashika Island and Tokashiku Beach, as you can see right here in the picture, the first picture.
Yeah.
And it looks just like the game if you played it. They just copied it, really. What do you think about this little beach? I didn't think it was real. I was like, oh, they made a cute little beach to retire our Kazuma, but it's a real beach.
It's very cute. It reminds me of the pirate Yakuza that just came out.
Oh yeah, I mean I was surprised at how much fun the combat is on that game. So
yeah,
let's talk about stuff we love to talk about. You're a graphic designer. The box art showdown. So the first box art is the Japanese one, which is pretty iconic. It has Kazuma looking up at the sky with a cigarette. Black and white, which is actually a motif for the Japanese releases. Yakuza 1 through 5 all had black and white covers in Japan. 6 changed it to color, and it's been colors after that.
Yeah.
Cool cover. This is iconic. This is actually one of my favorite covers from Japan. So I was disappointed when they brought it over, and it looked like, no, this is the UK one, I think. But yeah, this is okay. So there's 2 of them. So so the German one changed the face of Kazuma to the right, and then there's the one to the left from Sega. But this cover made people say this is American Kazuma, or I think there's like a meme saying this is like a totally different character because of the way his cheekbones and face look. You're not in frame right now, by the way, because of the way I cut the video.
I know. I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be the Kazuma cover.
There you go. There you go. What do you think about the American changes?
Well, both of them are just it's not good. I love the back tattoo ones, and obviously they can't keep doing that, but
right.
It seems like they really wanted to show that dragon off, but they didn't want to do the smoking. They didn't want to doctor the image. So they just it's really bad. I think it's up there with the Power Stone 2 US cover art.
It's crazy that they put like
it's really bad.
Embezzled over the like stencil of the dragon in the back.
Right.
Like, the emboss tool or whatever. It looks, and then the gradient looks really tacky.
And we're looking at it here on the computer screen, but when you look at it in person, it looks even worse because the colors really don't pop. It's very dark. Like
And
this is I have a light on my face, and look how dark the image is compared to like the whitest parts of my face. He's so
So my thing with it
even
too,
the red doesn't pop. It's bad.
that's what I'm saying. Like when you go to the store shelves, this is not going to pop off the shelf and be like, "Buy me, please."
Right.
And then right here we have the PS4 one, which you said they didn't censor the cigarette yet. Japan
They
censored
did
it.
yeah.
Yeah, they did here. So that's funny. They could have just used this cover. I mean, or this idea for the cover. This is way better than what we got. So
Yeah, the thing is though with the cigarette, it gives you the sense that he's outside, he's smoking, and he's deep in thought, looking up, and he's probably like fed up with everything.
right,
You
right,
know,
right.
and when you
I'm
look at the
pro-cigarette.
censored one, he's just looking up.
Right. He's like, "What are you looking up
It's
for?"
almost like, "Yo, Kazuma," and he's like, "What?" You know.
That's true. I agree. It doesn't work as
Weird.
good without the cigarettes. But yeah, censorship, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
So, changes to the writer. Yakuza 1 and 2 were co-written by the novelist Hase Seishu, which was done to add realism to the world. And he started to work with SEGA 2 years before Yakuza 1 was in development even. Now it is written by Masayoshi Yokoyama, who's always been a Sega staff writer, and so. But what do you think about changing it to more in-house? I actually don't hate the change because I feel like part of a novelist's job is to like add the tone, and once they add the tone, then do you really have to have them write every single game when you already have an in-house writer?
Right. Yeah, I think in general it's a better idea for game developers and even studios to keep things in-house, like especially when you start bringing in actors and basing the main character off their likeness and like touting that you've hired a contractor, like an external writer. Like if the game's a hit, those people can ask for more money, whereas a staff writer, it's just like, well, this is my job. You know,
Right.
like it's a stable job. I'm not going to ask my boss for a raise every single time another Yakuza comes out. Maybe I can ask for some of the profits or something. But yeah, it makes sense to keep it in house for sure.
According to AI, who I let it to see, I just asked it what the sentiment online was, and it said that after he left, the novelist from Yakuza 2 marked a shift toward more formulaic storytelling in Yakuza 3, prioritizing action and melodrama over the nuanced character studies of earlier entries. While the series retained its identity, the absence of his literary touch contributed to the perceived decline of narrative sophistication. I don't know about if I agree with that because I feel like it was always just a video game. But
Right.
It's not like it's not going to be a novel that wins prizes, right? Like a
right,
Hugo,
but that's I mean I know AI research gets a lot of flack, but one thing I think it does right is scraping the internet for opinion and then boiling it down. Like you can say like, what does the fan base think about this? And it's typically pretty spot on in finding an assessment. I've even tried it with like Us. I'd be like, what do people think about George? What do people think about Barry?
Oh no! Oh, George is hated throughout the internet.
They say he's very mean.
I'm not going to say anything about that, but I will say I think the formulaic thing is actually kind of right because we'll start seeing here. There's Yakuza 4 especially is kind of hated on by fans or at least memed about that. Like there's always a secret guy with a gun coming out of nowhere and they'll shoot a random guy, but the guy never dies. And he's actually comes back because, I don't know, for no reason. They don't even have to explain it, but yeah.
Do you see 3, 4, and 5 as their own little trilogy? Like, is there a lot of interconnectedness there, or is
I would consider
one?
I would consider 1, 2, and 3 probably the most connected in my opinion because we'll start going through the story characters, but they do connect with 1 and 2 in some ways.
Okay.
4 and 5 kind of felt like a TV show series where like you get a bunch of characters, and then like 6 was like a closing of like a long running television show, I guess.
Right.
But let's talk about the story for this game. Yakuza 3 follows Kazuma Kiryu as he leaves Kamurocho to run the orphanage in Okinawa. When the Ryudo family threatens to evict the orphanage for a resort development tied to a corrupt government bill, Kiryu uncovers a conspiracy involving Yakuza fractions, political corruption, and CIA operatives. The plot intertwines with the Tojo clan's internal power struggles after Daigo Dojima is shot, leading Kiryu to confront the rival clans, a rogue CIA agent, and a vengeful Yakuza chairman seeking to overthrow Daigo. So what do you think about this US? This is actually one, before the game came out, I think there was rumors that the game was going to be based in the United States for a few chapters,
Right.
but it never happened. And there's some US talk in this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but what do you think about the CIA agents being involved in this, and the possibility even having Kazuma come to like Chicago, for example?
I mean, I think it's cool that they started going global, and obviously now they're in America.
Yeah.
Which
Barely.
is just wild to me.
Like as close as Japan as it could get,
Right. But that's a great point. Like, I honestly do foresee the series doing like one. I know like LA would be interesting, New York would be interesting, but you said Chicago. Like, I think if they went to the Midwest in like a major city, that would be wild to me. Like
Right.
these Japanese guys who are just like, because I mean, Chicago is a major airline hub for Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think you guys have a really good walkable city, so I think it would make sense
Yeah.
for gameplay wise.
what's that dog? What is that dog's game? Watch Dogs. That was in Chicago.
Oh, I haven't played it. I didn't know that. That's nice.
Mhm.
So fun fact. I put a few fun facts in here. Originally, Yakuza 3 was planned to have a deeper political storyline tied to Okinawa's real-life controversies over land development and U.S. military bases. However, SEGA reportedly toned this down to avoid backlash, keeping the story more personal with the orphanage conflict. Do you think they should have went this way and just called out the U.S. ravaging land in these beautiful resort places?
You know, that's interesting because the Yakuza series does have a history of getting into land development.
Mm-hmm,
Don't they?
Yeah, they do.
And it's kind of funny, like, because someone asks you like, hey, what is the Yakuza games about? And you go, a lot of it covers land development, just like how someone say, what are those Saw movies about? And it's like, a lot of the movies actually talk about the healthcare system. You're like, really? Yeah, they do.
They actually do.
They do. Healthcare system and selling homes to poor people. Like, it covers a lot of that. It's wild.
I wonder what pushback they got and what the story was supposed to be. I'm assuming it was going to be very. I don't think they would ever go too anti-American, but I think the CIA and our military is very prissy when it comes to the way they're portrayed on media. So I could see them throwing a fit, maybe.
Right, and for a time too, it was covering the homeless population in Japan too. Right, that was a major.
I mean, technically,
element.
Nanba in the new Yakuza games is a homeless man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it would have been interesting. But here's a more fun fact: the Western version of Yakuza 3 features 295 minutes of cutscenes, according to the BBFC.
Wow.
Also, scene skipping by pressing start was disabled by default. You had to go into the menu to enable it. What do you think about long cutscenes in these games? Because some of my friends, they can't sit through long cutscenes. Like, they want to get directly into like arcade games or online games where you directly control the character. And I feel like when they have to sit, they're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't mind them, but it does annoy me that most Yakuza games, like, there's like a 45-minute, like, if you boot up the game, you have to set an hour aside. Like, you have to be ready for that. And I kind of wish they would jump right into the gameplay and then give you more story and give you the ability to save before all that story kicks in. Sonic, for a while, was doing like a lot of cutscenes from the start, and then you finally get to save. And then I forgot which, like the last few games start off with gameplay. I think Generations, Forces, Frontiers, and I much more appreciate that, because I think to assume people have like 2 hours to put aside blindly putting a disc in is a bit much.
I think it's not. I think that's what separates. I think this game, and it's funny that used to be a big issue and kind of a meme with Metal Gear Solid, where they're like the game is literally just cutscenes, and Yakuza doesn't really get that meme as much compared to Metal Gear Solid, because all my friends would basically mock the game about the cutscenes, and this game has more cutscenes, so definitely it's not for every gamer. Like if you have a short attention span sometimes and just want to get directly, probably play some Elden Ring probably, but this game's more cinematic for sure. So let's talk about the characters. They're kind of important in this game, maybe a little bit. So we're just gonna go through. You could talk to me what you think about the wrinkle technology in each one of these. Kazuma's always mad here, looking really cute. He's the protagonist who protects the orphanage and investigates the land deal, obviously. Balances his duty to the Tojo clan and with his commitment to the orphanage. Obviously, I got these from AI, and I put some of my own little things in here. So he discovers the CIA's involvement with the military base expansion bill and confronts Joji Kazama, his father. Oh, that's a spoiler. But Joji Kazama's a character, and I have his picture, so we'll talk about him anyway. I don't think it's that big of a spoiler. I don't know why Daniel said it was. I don't think it is, but Daigo, I mean, it's been like, how long? 15 years since this game came out?
Right.
The next character is Daigo Dojima. He's the chairman and Kiryu's successor. His arc is that he gets shot early in the game, and his survival hinges on Kiryu's effort. So his leadership is obviously challenged by another character here called Oshitaka, and who seeks to kill him and seize power. But I will say, Daigo is one of the biggest disappointments in this franchise for me as a character, because he's always like, this guy's going to succeed Kiryu. And I'm like, oh, he's going to get a game. When I played Yakuza 2 and he was like the punk in the street and you pick him up and stuff, I was like, oh, one day we're going to have a game where he's like Kazuma. Bruh, they literally, no, he's not even, Goro Majima got a game, not him. All right. But regardless, what do you think about this character? Did you play a lot of 2?
I played a bit of 2, so I know of him, but I'm not really connected to him. He's a character people like, but
he's also one of the, like, I guess they call it the top 3 old Yakuza Tojo clan members. It's like Goro Majima, Saejima, and him. Usually, whenever you do, like, they have to do guests. So I guess he got that. I think he deserves his own game. But the next guy is Yoshitaka Mine, and he's actually has a big fan base. He is the final antagonist of the game. He's manipulative, strategic, and idolizes Daigo, but betrays him. I'm not going to say what happens in the end because there's plot spoilers in the notes. But this guy has a lot of fans online, especially new people that come and play these games, think that this guy's probably the best villains they've had. The issue with a lot of these villains is they're kind of one-off villains in a way where, like, so people don't feel like they have to go buy every game. They always kind of have finished their arcs really neatly, and then you move on to your next arc. So that's him. Go Hamazaki, leader of the Hamazaki family and ally of the Snake Flower Triad. He collaborates with Lao Kao Long, who actually, that character returned in the last Yakuza game, Infinite Wealth. I was surprised, but he, where was that? Oh, and secures the Okinawa land for a secret casino. He unveils his plans unravel after Long's death, and he disappears. And Long did not die because he's in the new game. But regardless, What do you think? I liked his model because this is one of the first characters where I was like, he's so ugly. This game looks amazing. Because, like, you can make a pretty character all the time. Like, every character has, like, anime cute characters, right? But when you get a character that actually looks like an actual person and that person has a very distinct face, it really shows you, oh yeah, this is facial capturing. This is what it's supposed to do. And this is one of the characters that showed me that. What do you think about his hair? Will you ever get that haircut?
I could if I really tried. But yeah, I like characters that have very distinct faces because it's easier for me to track them through the story. Like, I'll be honest, in some Yakuza games I get confused as to who's who because everyone's wearing suits, everyone has black hair, and they all start to, I mean, I'm sorry this sounds wrong, but like a lot of them start to look alike. And I'm sure going through here, some of these characters, like, we'll get to a few I'm flicking through on my own, but yeah, a few of them you could easily mistake for a different one.
I think it's hard for people, especially if you're not native. I guess in Japan, I had the hardest trouble keeping track. I when I first started playing these games, I would always look at my notes because the game gives you entries for each character, and that's what I had to do because I guess I was a little more slow on it. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing I guess studying a little bit, like learning what these characters and how the Tojo clan structure was. I thought was pretty fun when I first played the games. The next character is, and this guy's not really a big character, but I added him because he's also in the new Yakuza 7. He comes back randomly. But Osamu Kashiwagi, that's how you say it. He visits him at the Kazuma family office. Kiryu visits him in the Kazuma family offices where he is gunned down by a helicopter and sent into a decades-long coma. His coma lasts all the way until Yakuza Like a Dragon, where he reappears as the owner of the Survive Bar. And in that game, they just walk in and they're like, Kazuma, when he meets him, he's like, I know this guy. But they both pretend they don't know each other because they're both hiding their real identity. But I thought that was a fun tidbit because we just thought he was gone. The only reason we know that he was in a long coma is because it's a side mission in one of the newer games where they kind of have a little talk where they don't reveal but do reveal, and they dance around the subject.
Right.
Okay, so next time we have Kanda. I want to say Canada. But I don't. He's a chairman of the Nishikiyama family. He's basically a suspect that just gets his butt beat and he's later killed, which is another thing about this game where like bad guys will randomly just kill characters when they're useless, which is another formulaic plot in this franchise. Mm-hmm. So I put him in here just to show you. Oh, this guy, I love this guy's model too. He reminds me of like an old grandpa from, well, he's a Yakuza, so he's probably not a cuddly grandpa, but he reminds me of like a character from Nakahara, his name is. He reminds me of kind of like one of those like Studio Ghibli characters. He's a
little bit.
He's the landowner, and he's initially an antagonist, but forms a bond with Kiryu and Saki, one of the orphanage girls. When his daughter's rescued, I'm not going to say spoilers, but he's a good character. I like him. Anything else I say, a lot of these characters have minor roles and just end up in plot points to fulfill plot points, which is another thing that a lot of people don't like about some of these games. But does this character here, Joji, remind you of anyone?
No. Who does he remind you of?
Okay, so he's the brother of Shintaro Kazuma, which is the father figure for Kazuma, and he's a CIA operative in here. And obviously Kazuma's like, is my dad back or something? Or, I mean, we already knew that it wasn't, but he looks just like him, and it's weird. I always thought that was weird. I remember randomly seeing promo material with his picture in one of them, and I'm like, what the hell is this? But yeah, he is revealed to be the mastermind, so he's kind of an antagonist in a way. Shimi Bakuro, this guy's just like a guy you meet in the beginning that fights with you and you do the beginning fighting missions. I like his look
Yeah.
because he reminds me of like an Italian-looking guy in a little bit. I like his like more afro haircut, which kind of showed off the graphics of the Dragon Engine. He dies in this game, so he definitely doesn't come back. He's a character I wish they would have kept around. I thought he was kind of okay. They could have expanded on him, but also we know Haruka Saramura, Kiryu's adopted daughter. She has obviously a more like a tween look here because she's obviously like 12 or 13 in this one. Provides emotional support and helps Kiryu connect with Sake. Her presence underscores Kiryu's protective instincts. He gives him that the dad vibe, you know. The girls love the dad vibe.
Yeah.
And we can't forget Kiryu's best friend, Makoto Date.
Yeah, right.
Komorocho detective and Kiryu's ally. Of course,
Look at his smile.
he had such a good plot point in Infinite Wealth with his story. I love the little they do little bar drinks, so everyone likes him. He's a fan favorite. So out of all these characters, I mean, I don't know. Here's my thing. So when we start looking through the characters, there's few things I want to bring up, and I want to see what you think about. It's all fucking dudes, man. Like that's one thing that right away, like you found, like you see right away, they're all just old dudes, old Japanese dudes, and I feel like that's an issue sometimes. And I'm not saying this because it offends me or anything like that, but it's like when you really go through it, it really just starts blending in with each other, like you said. And I feel like adding more females maybe would have expanded the look of the character cast. What do you think about that, though? Because I remember people mocking it, and I kind of defended it. But now that I play 7 and there's a more diverse cast, I feel like it actually made interactions between characters a lot better.
Yeah, because you get a lot of crossover. Like a lot of these guys are kind of similar to the other guys, and
Yeah.
You don't get different perspectives, like you were talking about, female characters. We were talking about homeless characters who have they kind of get roped into the story, but they have no connection to the Yakuza or Kazuma's past. And this game, you're still very like deep in the weeds of the clans and all these guys. So it makes sense, but at the same time, it's fun when they start bringing in characters who are not a Japanese man in a suit.
Agreed. There is one more aspect. Sayama, the love interest for Yakuza 2, she basically does kind of like a Poochie in this game. She meets Kazuma at the start of the game and tells him that she's leaving for America to train as a metropolitan police. And then that they should follow their own path. So basically a breakup. She's not in the story, but if you complete some of the special tasks, you get some text messages from her in Kiryu's phone. And if you check her profile, it's obvious that she's with her status changing. She changes her status. I think it starts off with saying, refused an invitation to dinner by a handsome American cop. And then in the end, it says, I just went out on a fancy dinner with a handsome American cop. And the fact that she calls him handsome, it's like so unrealistic. And it's so obvious what they're doing to the viewer. Like, she's moved on, guys. Don't even wait for her.
Right.
So what do you think about the whole like SEGA refusing to allow their protagonists to have a relationship with women?
It's odd, right?
Right,
like
it is
Vector
odd.
the crocodile can, but no one else.
And here's I guess I didn't do notes on them, but here's the orphanage kids. And I think the only people that actually get a lot of story is like Taichi and Haruka. And I think I don't, not really none of them. And I think that's an issue. I wish they would do more missions where you interacted with them, especially in 4 and 5. Would have been cool. But I feel like
not Mitsuo, the one who looks like a little man.
he does look like a little man. He looks better in 6. Here he is. But yeah, in 3 he looks weird. He looks he
does.
not good. His eyes look just so white around the eyeballs. Weird.
Yeah, and he looks tired.
He looks younger with like a little bit of baby fat in the 6 screenshot. But
How is he in Yakuza Dead Souls? Is he like a zombie or
no,
something?
he's not even in it. I mean, they're not going to be in it. No, yeah, the kids are not in it. But yeah, he specifically is only in 3 and 6. So it shows you how little they use the orphanage kids in actual games. I think in 5, you just send them money and then they tell you messages through text. Like, they didn't even put the models in. It's like, man, come on, guys. These kids need their dad. I'm gonna go through the gameplay real quick. The core Yakuza action gameplay is usually the same. Sure, there have been big upgrades from 1 to 3. The core ideas have not changed. The game still has cinematic story, highly detailed mocapped actors, beat-em-up action with plenty of side quests, and mini-games scattered about. But let's talk about some of the changes. This game is the first one to have seamless battles. So between no loading, so that's a big overhaul. Streamlined pacing, and also it has more of a focus on the defensive play, like I told you before, where you have to do more dodging mid-combos and try to use weapons and other things they use. It's also encouraged to grab in this game, which is not a thing that people were used to at the time, and definitely upgrade your skills. Also, here's a fun fact. Early builds of the game had more brutal heat actions, especially ones involving weapons, but were toned down before release, probably to align with the changes in regulations in Japan with video games. What do you think about, like, have you seen some of the heat actions online and how brutal they are?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're wild.
That's why I'm like, the fact that they had to censor them, I'm like, what is this, Mortal Kombat? And I don't know. I think it's funny because he Negotiate hates on Grand Theft Auto for being violent, but I'm like, bro, Kazuma is like using someone's face as a grinder. But yeah,
it's crazy.
They also added first-person view mode. Better. I mean, we saw the engine. Obviously, it's in 3D. It's a lot better. Here's the thing I didn't like: the chase battles. They had chase battles in here, very bad. But outside of that, everything was kind of kept the same. I don't think we need to go too much into it, but we will talk about some of the mini games here. So this game also introduced golf, poker, fishing, roulette, karaoke, bowling, darts. So there's a lot of introductions in this game, specifically just this one. So do you think that people take all this stuff for granted, like the seamless gameplay from fighting, the 3D effects, the karaoke, bowling, and roulette, because they didn't play 1 and 2 on the PS2 and don't understand how massive of an upgrade this was at the time?
That probably is correct. I myself played a little bit of 1 and 2, the original PS2 versions, and then seeing what this game brought to the table, it's like, wow, I think people were wrong in saying that Yakuza 1 or 2 on the PS2 were comparable to Shenmue. This is when I really think the series started to feel like it was lifting from Shenmue, just in terms of what you were able to do, where you could go, the combat, things like that. So, yeah, it's and correct me if I'm wrong, but the team too, they hire people and that's their job. They're like the bowling guy, right? They only work on one element
I think they switch them up depending on the game. But from what I've heard, it's like one guy that like does the like ports for the arcade games and stuff like that. So that's crazy. I mean, just saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think so let's talk about content cuts for the Western release. So the Western released came out in 2010, so we had to wait a year, and it removed 17% of the side missions. 21 out of 123 were cut, and 20% of the mini games were cut out. 4 out of 10. This included the Hostess Club Management System, which, man, that made me so mad because I really wanted to try it. Because a lot of people said that it was really, really good at the time, and obviously was like disappointed that they made me pay full price, and they took it out. It's like, why? But anyway,
Wow.
entirely. So yeah, that was entirely cut out. The mini games that were taken out was Answer X Answer, a Japanese history quiz show, which
That's fair.
I think I would have been okay if they like redid the questions for Sega Facts, maybe.
Yeah.
Shoji, Mahjong, and the Massage Parlor, which was an erotic mini game. They removed those. As you can see, Mahjong and Shoji. Maybe there is a few people. I've seen people on the Yakuza video games subreddit talk about how their moms are addicted to Mahjong on Yakuza. So I'm assuming there are some people that are Mahjong pros. Not me. Are you a Mahjong Shoji pro?
I'm not, but I met a guy who does. He's like the big name in Yakuza Game Facts guides. He does them all, and I do believe, as like a side gig, he teaches mahjong.
Okay, and there was also a song release for licensing issues. I don't think that's a big deal, but what do you think about a big deal like to cut this much content? Because the fans really did not like it, and they were really upset.
I think it is because I remember this specifically being a big deal amongst fandom. I remember you complaining and others where it's just like, I get the Japanese history bit, but then you're taking out like, sure, like shogi and mahjong are not games we play here, but they're games you can learn. And what hurts in keeping them in and people can learn them through the game. Massage Parlor, I wish they kept in. I think I like the cheeky games. And then the side missions, which I think we'll talk about too. It's just, I don't know. I think this Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 5 are kind of low points in the localization, either because they didn't give us physical release or they cut a lot of content.
I'll do Sega of America's response. So this is their response. The parts the parts we ended up taking out were parts that we felt didn't make sense, like a Japanese history game, or wouldn't resonate as much, such as the concept of a hostess club. They emphasized that the story remained unchanged and prioritized releasing the game over preserving all content. What do you think about that where they like the game is in Japan? And they're like, but
right,
it wouldn't make sense to have a hostess club. You don't think we as Americans can't have a concept of what a hostess club is? Like in our little tiny American brains, we're like, is that like McDonald's,
right?
Man?
Yeah. Well, remember too, and I'm trying to see if this was around the same time. I believe it is. Sega re-released. It was, they re-released Crazy Taxi to Xbox and Xbox 360 and PS3, and they omitted all the music because it was a cost-cutting measure, and they put in a bunch of like new tracks that just did not match the feeling of the game at all, and just took the soul right out of the game. And I feel like this was an era where the localization team were just trying to find ways to cut costs and cut time. And they learned from these mistakes, and now they have a real powerhouse localization team that bring everything over and make everything accessible to Americans without dumbing it down or removing things. And you also see that with like companies like Discotech, where they put a lot of effort into the localization of the anime and the because they know that this is a fandom that wants authenticity. You know, they don't want to go to a sushi restaurant and be given hamburger and French fries because they're American.
I agree, and I think Capcom's also another one that's learned a lot from this too, because of their Phoenix Wright games and their hamburgers and their placement.
Oh yeah,
like that.
100%.
So yeah. So in 2019, Sega released the Yakuza 3 Remastered, which restored most of the content, including the hostess clubs, mini games, and side missions. Most of them. Exceptions include the 2 missions removed in the Japanese remaster for narrative reasons. This addressed fans' complaints, but highlighted obviously some of the localization shortcomings. The cut side missions included one where a man who identifies as a woman pursues Kiryu romantically, which leads to a rather uncomfortable escape scenario, and basically played it up for a comedic effect. So it makes sense why they cut it. I think that's a bad stereotype to have, like painting people that. So there's a double-sided sword here. There's a lot of missions where women and men are in love with Kiryu, and he kind of leaves. But I think he made it a little more uncomfortable in this one and played it off more as a joke than just leaving.
Yeah.
So I think if they toned it down, I don't think it would have been an issue. But I think it's sensitive topic, so probably just cut it altogether. In my opinion, they did the right choice. Sega and RGG chose to remove these missions to align with contemporary social attitudes, reflecting the shift in cultural sensitivity. Series producer Nagoshi reportedly felt uncomfortable with the content after befriending a trans individual. That's another thing. I mean, I'm glad that he changed his mind, but at the same time, he has to know someone personally for it to affect him. He can't just have empathy that people are different and you should probably be nice. I think that's fine. But I'm happy that he learned. I just wish more people had the empathy that they didn't need to have a friend be affected by something. Because you're not going to meet everyone in the world. So I think they did a good job, and this is controversial, but I think that they should have. I guess if they want to have trans representation, but tell them this. Tell their story, right? Don't be using them for comedic and joke effects. Jokes are supposed to punch up, not down. That's my take.
Right.
Yours?
Right. Well, I was going to say, I thought your question would be, name a situation in your life where you were bigoted and then you met someone.
Yeah, can you? No, you're good.
That was a show. That was a TV show. The guy who did Super Size Me, I think, hosted it, where he would have like a racist switch places with like a black person. It was really weird.
I've never seen it. That sounds weird.
And then the guy came back and he's like, man, I realize now that I'm a racist. It's like, oh, yeah.
Oh, man, you barely... Some people don't know. It's weird. But let's talk about fun facts.
Love those.
Yakiyama, a Yakuza 4 character, fan favorite too, was originally meant to debut in Yakuza 3. His story was pushed back because the developers felt it didn't fit the game's Okinawa setting. Which they're right. I mean, he's like he's a broker or whatever with money, so he lends money. He's a loan shark, I guess, a good loan shark. And I guess you could have fit him in this story, but considering that the first cutscene he has in Yakuza 4 is like 2 hours, probably would have added a lot of story to this game. So I think they made a good choice there.
For sure. Yeah.
The marketing campaign. Let's talk about advertisement. My favorite. Give me stuff so I could buy your game. The marketing campaign for Yakuza 3 emphasized immersive product placement and strategic DLC to enhance engagement. Sega partnered with real brands like Centauri, Club Sega, which is theirs, and Don Quixote to recreate authentic shopping exteriors, interiors, and even in-game menus, blending gameplay and real-world advertisement. Sub-stories were crafted around these collaborations, such as the quest involving Ace Cook Noodles, further integrating brands into the narrative. So here's the DLC. I think I put the cards in here. So we have 2 DLCs. So this is what Sega was selling as DLC packs back then, which, to be honest, is a little... I hate this whole DLC. This is the era, too, where you pre-ordered a game, you would get the DLC or whatever.
I got the card here.
Right. I think it was because you bought it day one or something. It was so people wouldn't buy used games. That's literally why they did it. So
I never checked to see if this expired or was used. I should try that.
What do you think about that era where they cut content from the main game to give you a code that just unlocks that content through a store?
I hate that. Like, nothing makes me happier than to wait for it to download, because I'm like, all right, this clearly came out afterwards. This is actual extra content. But then I hate it when it's like, click to download and it's like unlocked. It's like, oh man, that was there the whole time.
This is the era of that. But the pre-order DLC included multiplayer mini games and costumes. So basically, you could play it the mini games through the main menu instead of going into the game. It came out through GameStop, and this obviously mirrored Japanese free DLC campaigns. They gave it away for free over there as like DLC drops. So this is supposed to be to get users to buy new instead of used. Do you think that used games are still an issue now that everyone buys digitally, basically?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they still do a lot of day one editions with Sega, launch editions, but I went to Target a few days ago and I was seeing launch editions for stuff that came out, in the summer of last year. So it's not like they're drying up. I actually think there's some games that have never had a normal edition. They've only ever had the launch edition.
It's probably
which is kind of funny.
So before we get to the next thing, I guess, do you want to say anything about the Yakuza 3 PS4 limited run games edition of the game?
Yeah, these releases they've been doing in general are interesting. I liked from the onset where they were like, this is like a collection that you can buy where on your shelf everything's uniform. Each game will get their own collector's box. There's going to be a soundtrack. Like, I appreciated that, but my issue with it is that if you miss the first release, what's the point in like getting one of them or getting all but two of them? And then on top of that, the price point for them is so much. I did the math, and it was like for the collector's ones, it was like $800 or something. Just wild to me.
I agree with you on liking the uniform look. I like the box that it comes in. I put it up. It's on the screen for people that are watching at home. And it comes with a soundtrack. Mm-hmm. I don't like that it comes with an acrylic standee. I think that's really cheap.
Yeah, those are cheap.
Cheap as hell.
Yeah.
It's like, and then the pin. It's always pin, that, and then character cards. I wish they would do something more authentic for the game that has a unique setting in Okinawa.
What was your favorite Yakuza like American special edition that they've done? Because they've done quite a few.
I got the pirate Yakuza one. Not as good as Yakuza 6. That's the best one. I'm gonna be honest with you. It comes with shot glasses.
With the
glass.
The whiskey glasses and the
Yes.
whiskey cubes.
That's
and the
amazing.
and it had the coasters too. It was a whole set.
It was amazing. That was
amazing.
Yeah.
And then they did the Essence of Art book for like the same game as like I've never seen that before, where there's the base game, the collector's edition, and then the deluxe edition, which is different from like the collector's edition. So you're like, man, I gotta get them all.
I would say the pirate Yakuza one. I think it has is this the one with? I haven't opened it all the way to the bottom. I just opened it and looked at it. I think it has a flag, but it was $129, but it's also not misshaped, so it fits in your shelf. It's just thick, so it kind of looks like these mock-up the ones from limited run games in size in a way.
Interesting. Yeah, I had a pre-order for the PS5 one for the longest time, and then I was like, what am I doing? I don't own a PS5, but if I get the PS4 game, I can play it now. And then on top of that, I was like, it's $130. Like, what am I doing? I'm buying a game I can't play for $130. That's just insane.
Also, if the game is on PS5 and PS4, if you buy the PS4 version, it upgrades it usually on the PS5. While if you buy a PS5 game, you can't play it on the PS4. It's weird. So that's another reason.
And I'm going to Japan soon, so I'm going to potentially see the Japanese special edition. Might as well just get that.
Yeah, it looks good. It has like
it does look good.
Has like a I was gonna say we should
a little toy.
Let's look at this exclusive Japanese Yakuza 3 commercial. If you if you watch Tell End, wow, the clickbait title. Watch Tell End. You'll see a surprise character show up. You'll see. All right, I'm gonna play it.
All right, let's do it.
その男には信念を貫く生き様がある。今は俺を信じろ。龍が如く
You know who this is?
Yeah.
それを支えたのが PS3 の表現力。大事なのは信念だよな。
Dude,
みんなここで
you see that look he gave in 25 seconds in? Look at that look. Man, look at
Wow,
that.
they met in real life. That's crazy.
I think it's trying to like show you like he's so realistic that he could stand right next to the guy that made the game, and you're like, oh
Didn't-
shit, he's real.
Didn't Nagoshi say that Kazuma's based on a friend of his?
Yeah, I think he's.
So that maybe that's his friend.
Yeah, this is it. They go out in the beach and they skip rocks together.
Yeah.
I mean, the graphics are good, but like he's like, I guess Nagoshi is the perfect person because he's also very like oily. So they're both very oily.
Yeah, he's a little plasticky. He's had work done.
For sure
He's
he's
got
had
the teeth
work done.
we talked about. So.
Yeah, the veneers. He definitely has a lot of work
Yeah,
done.
he's got veneers.
The next thing I was gonna show you is these pictures. This is a PS3 console that came out for it.
Oh, I love that.
I wanted this so bad, but I think this is the one that doesn't play native PS2 games on it, which kind of got me a little upset. But it looks so nice.
Yeah.
It's white. It has for the viewers at home, it's a white old fat PS3, and it's with silver trim. And it has two dragons on each side, cropped, and they're silver too, and they shine beautifully with the
Imagine
light.
owning that and the Panzer Dragoon Orta Xbox from Japan.
I mean, you could if you have the money.
Yeah, you could. Right now, you can.
Yeah.
What's that book that it comes with? It says "Loser." Did you see that?
It's the single for the game.
Ah, the
It's-
music. Okay.
Yeah, the music. Yeah, it's called Loser. Yeah, the song title. Maybe they're
That's
talking
great.
about the fan base. I don't know. I'm joking.
Maybe.
So let's talk about sales data. Globally, the game did 800,000 units, and in Asian markets, it did 500,000, bringing the total to 1.3 million, which in my opinion is a huge success for Sega. This ranked it as the 6th in the series' all-time sales. It was outperformed by Yakuza 2, which sold almost 827,000 units in Japan alone. That's insane. Yakuza 2 did well. And Yakuza 0 obviously did 2 million globally. Way more than that, I'm assuming. But it debuted debuted higher than Yakuza Like a Dragon at 700,000. I think the franchise is doing really, really well, by the way. So lifetime, the sale of the franchise has been 27.7 million since 2024. Yeah. My last thing I want to bring up before we close the show is the tattoos. Here we have a picture with all the tattoos. I like the geisha one. I thought it was because everything's always animal, and it's like the god. I like Daigo's like whatever sun god he has. I always thought that was unique. But the geisha, you never see a geisha like that's not really threatening. Every single other one is very threatening people, and this guy's like, "Give me the geisha, my dude, right in the back." What do you think?
And that, there's your female character. He just needs to turn around and take his shirt off, and you got one.
Carrying her on her back. Anyway,
Yeah.
I was gonna say
like Maui and Moana, like the tattoos come to life.
What tattoo would you get if you had to become a Yakuza? If you had to pick from these right here?
I mean, if I had to become a Yakuza and I was a character in the game,
right.
I would get a blue hedgehog because then people would be like, "Oh, look, it's the Sonic character. It's the Sonic guy."
I was thinking about like
I'll be Sonic Man.
a badger or like a cow, like so something that like a puppy,
like a dairy cow,
a chihuahua.
Oh, that'd be good. I'd like a little. It's real size too. So you're like, where's your tattoo? And you're like, oh, it's a little tramp stamp of a chihuahua. Do you have a tattoo?
No, I don't actually right now. No, I'm not. I'm not cool enough to have one.
No, I got piercings all over though.
I don't even know.
That's a different Barry.
That's a different Barry. Yeah, no, a big thing about these games are the tattoos. Obviously, very authentic tattoos. They always take their pride. I wish they would do an art book on just the tattoos of all the games from the beginning to the end.
They might. I have that Yakuza character book that came out when 7 came out, and I've never really paged through it that much, but I bet it has the tattoos. I'll have to check that out.
And that's anything else you want to add about Yakuza 3?
I mean, it's both an important game in the franchise because it really ushered the main series into the PS3 era, which went on to have 3 games. But it's also kind of like I wouldn't say a mid or unmemorable game, but it's probably the one people talk about the least. And I think the reason for that is it's overshadowed by 0, 1, and 2. It's also just the oldest feeling game of the main series because you can't experience a newer version outside of the remaster. And I don't know, I feel like they'd be wasting their time doing a Kiwami for this because then people would be like, oh, where's 4 Kiwami? Where's 5 Kiwami? And it's like, I don't think they want to go down that road. They don't want to keep looking back.
We'll be here all day. Like,
you know?
How much can Yakuza fans buy and play? Like, these games are massive, 120-hour games. I beat Pirate Yakuza because I wanted to beat it. And it was like, for a side game, I think the story alone is 20 hours, and that's usually a full game when you master everything in the game for a side game. So they're long, and
right.
So you got to keep it to the main. I do want 1 and 2 HD. Just because I think it would be cool to play the old ones on a new console, and I don't have to take out the PS2 every time. And honestly, the PS2 looks ugly because of the blurry graphics. I want it in HD.
How would you react if in a few years there was a Yakuza game and in the character's house was a PS2 and it had Yakuza 1 and 2 playable?
I would just play it in the character's house. Then
yeah,
they should give it to you in the main menu.
That would be cool.
Or like let you. So Yakuza 9 has part 1, and then they're like, well, if you buy part 10, Yakuza 10, you'll get part 2 of Yakuza 2. I guess that would be nice. I guess. But yeah. Anything else you want to add about Yakuza 3 when we close it up?
No, I have one memory here, and then I know we're going to close things out with the memories from our picker. The memory we have is from Alex, and all he has to say is, I have not played yet since I'm still working on Yakuza Kiwami 2. Maybe I could make it my summer game once I finish Kiwami 2. Yeah, why not? Let's say this is a summer game. It's got beaches.
It has beautiful sunsets.
It does, yeah, and before we get into our pickers' memories, I will say on the next episode, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. It's going to be another pick from Daniel, but this one is a prompt for us to answer, and I think I'm going to open it up to a Q&A as well. So I'll jump on our Twitter, our Blue Sky, our Facebook, our Patreon. And if you're a Patreon picker, your question will get answered. But I'll get a reasonable list of questions, and we'll do kind of like a Sega Talk Q&A. I think that would be a fun little spring break for us.
And that's it for this episode of Sega Talk. Bye.
Adios.
The people also call this game Yakuza 3 because there's a lot of blocking in the combat. This game, to me, was jarring. I played this right after the Kiwami games, and I know that was a foolish thing to do in hindsight. I guess it's best recommend to play the games in order of release, but newcomers are not going to want to do that. So when this came out, I played the remaster version, okay? And when that got announced, when that got released, when that came out, that was advertised as a sequel to Yakuza Kiwami 2. And I was really mad about that. I was really angry that they didn't do a Kiwami treatment for the rest of the series, that they just ported them to the PS4. The least Sega or the Yakuza team, I don't know I'm not going to pronounce the actual name right now. The least they could have done is given these games slice of life updates. They could have given the remastered games slice of life updates, but no, or slice of life updates. That's all they need to do. Like having you save the game whenever you want to. Maybe making the RPG progression elements a little bit more. I don't know. What's what I'm looking for? Like more simplified. Maybe like just designing some elements maybe a little bit more fluidly. Like maybe making the combat just a tad bit more fluid than the original. Just little things like that. But no, and maybe giving you the ability to pause during cutscenes. You can't even do that much in this game. It's like what the fuck. Not even in Yakuza 4. It's a very much like what the fuck jarring like change from Yakuza Kiwami 2 to 3. Like Sega, what? I'm sorry to sound like I've been watching that in your video recently, so I'm just gonna say it. What were you thinking? What were they thinking? Why do they not give these games slice of life updates? It's not too late. They can update them now and do it, but no, it hasn't happened yet, and it is frustrating, and it makes you tell newcomers. Maybe you should skip these games and just play them for their gameplay, because I really just want to get into Yakuza 9 right now, or like a Dragon Pirate Hawaii adventure, or the heck it's called with Goro Majima. Because like, I don't know, it's just playing these games made me realize playing Yakuza in time and order isn't fully worth it. So I'm just jumping around the timeline and playing whatever I want. So I hate to say it, but it's true. Like, I really loved Zero and Kiwami 2. Kiwami 1 was alright. I really liked it a lot. It was a good game. But this game, oof, man, I don't know. I don't recommend skipping it. If you're gonna play it in easy mode. But just do yourself a favor and play the other games that come after this one while you're playing this one to give yourself a break. And that's not. I know that doesn't make a good game, right? So you be the judge on that one. That is you have your own opinion towards that. I'm not gonna say anything else about that. But I don't want to shit on Yakuza 3, but I can't help myself. It's not perfect, and the game really shows you that. So this was the first big HD Yakuza game, and yes, it suffers from that. But it's kind of like Sonic 06. Like, it suffers for being the first of its kind, right? So it sucks. It's unfortunate, but I actually like the original Yakuza 1 more than this game. And yeah, it's saying a lot, because this is the third entry, so that's saying a lot. I know, guys. I know. I'm sorry. I should stop talking now, because this has been going on for a while. Those are my Yakuza 3 memories. It's a good game to a certain extent, but if you're not fully into it, I don't blame you. It's hard to get into. So play at your own risk. That's all I gotta say about that.